All right, there we go. I got the thumbs up. I love the thumbs up. Good morning, everybody. All right, thank you, Bill, for sharing with us communion time today. Always a precious, precious time in our worship services. And I didn't preach last week, so it's my opportunity to say to you, Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. It's good to see you. How many folks have already put all your Christmas decorations away? All your Christmas decorations. How many of you have not put your decorations away? Oh, wow. How many of you are not going to put your decorations away? All right. You leave them up year round. Do you really? That's amazing. I love that. Y'all are weird. But anyway, that's all right. I love it. I hope your Christmas was good. I hope your New Year was good. All that good stuff. We were talking with friends this week about when our kids were young, around the holidays, and we got talking about one of the things that we have wonderful memories when our kids were young was traveling during the holidays, and that's not always fun, but we always made that a great adventure. The journeys we would take when our kids were little, we lived in Western New York, and so all of my kids' grandparents, our parents, were all very, very far away. And so we would always enjoy Christmas morning at our house, and then maybe that afternoon or the next day or sometime soon after Christmas, we'd get in the car, we get in the minivan, and we would head south to see family. My parents lived in Charlottesville at the time, and Corning, New York is 400 miles from Corning to Charlottesville. It's a little over between 6 and 7 hours of driving with two preschoolers in the back seat. And so we made a lot of preparations when we would do those journeys. We got a lot of snacks. Do you remember cassette tapes? You remember those back in the day? Anybody remember? Anybody not remember? Yeah. These things called cassette tapes, we would put them into the car itself and it would play things. It would play Adventures in Odyssey for some of you older folks. We would listen to Adventures in Odyssey traveling around the country. We would listen to worship tapes as we were coming down the road. Northern Pennsylvania in December is really risky, so we had all the weather to contend with. And of course, before we got in the car, we always prayed for 6-hour naps. That's what we prayed for. But those were wonderful, fun adventures that we still look back on fondly. Those times of loading up the kids in the minivan, and Aaron would have the middle row, and Matthew would have the back row, and they actually were really, really great travelers. They were great to take on journeys. What's your most memorable journey that you've ever taken? I don't know, maybe it was vacation or a work trip or a trip to see family somewhere, or maybe it was a mission trip or military deployment. You know, what was your most memorable journey? Well, there you go. Thank you. California. That was your most memorable journey. That's a great place to journey to. Not stay, but journey to. So anyway. We love Southern California. When our kids went off to college, so now let's flip ahead several years, they went to college in East Tennessee. And Milligan College, where they went, where we all part of our lives is Milligan College, it is literally 20 miles from the border of Virginia, 20 miles from the border of North Carolina, at the little tippy tip of northeast Tennessee. My kids went to college with people, and this shocked me. They went to college with people who they would come home on break and say, Dad, there are people who grew up in Tennessee who've never been out of the state of Tennessee. 20 miles from the border. I couldn't believe it. That always just blew my mind because we just enjoy the journey. What are some of your most memorable journeys? This year, 2026, we're going on a journey together as a church family. On Sunday mornings, the preaching team is going to be focused on the journey. You're going to hear a lot about the journey this entire year. Life is a journey. It's not a sprint. It's not a nice flat track, somewhere of a race course that you might think of at a high school track or something like that. As we said on the last Sunday of 2025, life is indeed a race, but it's more like a cross-country race with ups and downs and turns and twists, and parts of it are smooth, parts of it are rocky, parts of it you can see pretty far up ahead, other parts of it you can't see over the hill what's coming next. But that's the journey of life. We want to focus on that life journey this year, focusing on some of the great journeys of the Bible, from King David's up and down journey of his life to the prophet Daniel's journey as a stranger in a strange land, to the Apostle Paul's journeys around the Roman world, to our journey of freedom here during our nation's semi-quincentennial. I got it out. I was really worried about that one. Everybody say semi-quincentennial. Nice job. I heard one over there. That was very good. I like that. Yes, our 250th birthday, our semi-quincentennial. We're going to talk about the journey of freedom here as followers of Christ, focusing on the biblical lessons that help each of us navigate the journey of life well. Whatever your journey, a car journey, a bike journey, a plane journey, a journey with your kids, a journey by yourself, you have to prepare well if you want to enjoy the journey. That doesn't mean that every detail has to be figured out. In fact, some journeys are more enjoyable without having all the details figured out. But you still have to be well prepared. You have to have the right clothes. You have to have the right equipment, like if you're going hiking or something like that. You have to have the right directions. You have to have the right nourishment. You have to be well prepared if you want to enjoy the journey. We're on a life journey together. How do we travel well? We begin the journey of 2026 with the journeys of Jesus, emphasizing his journeys in the Gospel of Mark. Now, we're not going to do a verse-by-verse dive into Mark. We're going to do more of a chapter-by-chapter, hitting highlights, gleaning the best ways to travel the journey of life. So Seth kicked us off last Sunday in Mark chapter 1. Mark has 16 chapters. We're going to cover roughly one per week. There are going to be some where we're doubled up because we want to end in Mark at the resurrection on Easter Sunday. So we'll double up in there, and I'll let you know when we're going to do that. But for next week, I just want you to read Mark chapter 3. You're welcome to read the whole gospel. It won't take you very long. But for next Sunday, read chapter 3 of the Gospel of Mark and glean your own lessons. Don't just wait for the preacher to tell you what to glean from the chapter. Glean your own lessons from the Gospel of Mark. Mark's gospel is the simplest of all four gospels. When I was taking Greek class in college and in seminary, Mark was the easiest to translate. It's the simplest, uses the simplest language, the simplest words, the simplest grammar. It's the shortest, it's the simplest length, you might say. Yet I thought it was fascinating that Mark is the only one who refers to his gospel as a gospel. He tells us at the very front that this is about the gospel of Jesus. This is about the good news that Jesus brings. Now, scholars differ as they do on everything, but most agree that Mark is the earliest gospel written. And it's written by a companion of Peter and Paul, not written by one of the 12 disciples. Many scholars believe that the primary source of Mark's information for this gospel is, in fact, Peter himself. Some folks even refer to it as Peter's gospel because they feel like Mark is writing it down for him. Where each gospel has a unique audience, which is wonderful. We get 4 different angles of the life of Jesus. Mark's seems most attuned to the Roman mind, the mind of action, the mind of work, the mind of service. Now, you will notice as you last week and over the Christmas season, there is no birth narrative in Mark. We don't ever refer to Mark during the Christmas season because there's nothing about the birth. No shepherds, no wise men, no angels, none of that stuff. No mangers, none of that. There's no birth narrative in Mark. You jump right in, and that's what we did last week. We jumped right into John the Baptist preparing the way for Jesus, Jesus' baptism, the calling of his first disciples, and then we talked about a number of Jesus' healing. Chapter 1's a long chapter, but all of the gospel is fast-paced, constantly moving, just like American life. So we should be able to relate well to this gospel. In Mark 2, the emphasis is on the revolutionary ministry of Jesus. Jesus was not a man of the status quo. He was a man of action, as Mark loves to demonstrate from chapter 1 through chapter 16. Jesus is a man of action on a mission. There's no time to waste. Every day is a day to teach. Every day is a day to serve. Every day is a day to make a difference in someone's life. Pretty good lesson right there, the overarching message of the Gospel of Mark. But I want you to notice the revolutionary teaching that's smack dab in the middle of the chapter. We always put the scriptures up on the screen for you, and that's good, but it would be good this month to find it in your own Bible, whether that's on your phone or your tablet or your, that thing that we call a book, it would be good to find Mark in that and follow along so you'll know where you're reading this week. But in the middle of Mark chapter 2, verse 18, comes this passage, and I'm going to break it up a little bit more than what's on the screen there. John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. Now, they were fasting because of the rules of the day. Old Testament law, Old Testament regulation said you are to fast on the Day of Atonement. There was very specific rules about fasting on the Day of Atonement. But over the years, the Pharisees had added additional fasts to demonstrate their piety, to demonstrate how spiritual they were. Well, we fast more than that. John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. Some people came and asked Jesus, how is it that John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees are fasting, but yours are not? Why are they super spiritual and your followers are not? Jesus answered, how can the guests of the bridegroom fast while he's with them? They cannot, so long as they have him with them. But the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and on that day they will fast. Oh, they will fast, but not yet. Jesus goes on. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, otherwise the new piece will pull away from the old, making the tear worse. And no one pours new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins. Now, these are, odd metaphors for the 21st century. They weren't for that day and age, but for the 21st century, these are a little bit odd for the reader today. We don't do a lot of patch sewing anymore. My mom would iron on patches on my brothers and the knees and the bottoms of our breeches, she would call them. Yes, those were, you probably, some people in this room remember iron on. Some of the people in this room probably remember having patches sewn. Don't do a lot of sewing anymore. We go to the store and we just buy new pants, don't we? We don't use a lot of wine skins anymore. Like, I don't even know that I've ever even seen one except in a museum. But I don't want us, just because these are odd metaphors for the 21st century mind, I don't want us to miss the revolutionary aspect of Jesus' statement here. New wine requires new wineskins. You can't put new wine in old skins. They will burst. And I looked it up because I had no idea. Why on earth would they burn? I looked up the physics of new wine. New wine, when it is poured into whatever vessel it is going into, in this case a wine skin, a leather, a animal skin filled with wine, that new wine is still undergoing fermentation. And fermentation leads to expansion. Expansion leads to pressure on the vessel that the wine is held in. And new wine in old wine skins is kablooey. And wine goes everywhere, and the wine is ruined, and the wineskin is ruined. In essence, Jesus says, you're right. My disciples don't fast right now. I'm teaching them a new and a better way. Jesus' teaching and Jesus' behavior all throughout the gospel is new. In fact, it's revolutionary, turning the status quo on its head, discarding meaningless tradition, meaningless religious behavior for biblical truth. So chapter 2 of Mark demonstrates that the arrival of Jesus requires a new approach to impacting others. Where those around Jesus acted one way, he communicates there is a better way. Where those around us emphasize one way to lead the journey of life, we know that there's a better way. Where those around us say that they have it all figured out, they don't. There is a better way, and Jesus teaches it, and Jesus demonstrates it. Mark 2 shows, and this is where we begin today through looking at the chapter 2 of Mark. Mark 2 shows we care for the sick. Now, you say, well, surely people were caring for sick people back then. And of course they were. But there were often rules attached to that care. Some rules that were spoken and some rules that were unspoken. This makes Jesus' teaching revolutionary. Sickness was often linked to being ceremonially unclean, and there was biblical basis for that, but that was often extended far beyond the religious context to a point where people would be shunned from society. Sickness was often linked to sin, And if you're chronically ill or chronically impaired, you were obviously a chronic sinner, cursed by God. Jesus brings new wine, a new approach, a godly approach. We go back to more toward the beginning. We see Jesus' healing of a paralyzed man. He says in verse 9, which is easier to say to this paralyzed man, your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up, take your mat, and walk? But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. So he said to the man, I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home. He got up, took his mat, and walked out in full view of them all. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, we've never seen anything like this. No, they hadn't. These people had never seen someone healed of years-long infirmity. These people had never seen someone healed who had been shunned from society. We care for the sick. We visit hospitals. We go to nursing homes. We go to rehab places. We visit the sick in their homes. Now, this doesn't sound particularly revolutionary to many people in this room because you're already doing that. But maybe it is revolutionary if you aren't actively caring for the sick. Maybe that's something you need to commit to prayer today and commit to action. It can also be revolutionary if we harbor restrictions on our care for others, spoken and unspoken rules. We have to make sure we have to make sure that what we do is not reject anyone whose sickness we are uncomfortable with. That's what the Pharisees of the day were doing. For us, the addict, the sickness of addiction, needs our care. The person who's brought their health issues on themselves need our care. The person whose life choices are not ours needs our care. The person walking through psychiatric illness or emotional illness needs our care. The person walking through depression needs us to walk through it with them. The person struggling with dementia needs our care and patience. In the year 165, a devastating plague struck the Roman Empire. Most scholars now believe that it was smallpox. It is believed that up to a quarter or a third of the Roman population died from this plague. When someone was found to be ill, they were pushed out of their homes and into the streets to die. It was the church, the followers of Jesus, who went into the streets to care for the dying. Obviously, a great personal risk to themselves. And this did not go unnoticed. And more people turned to Christ because of Christians caring for the sick and the dying. As we journey through life, the sick need us, each and every one of them. How will we care for them? We're also reminded in Jesus' revolutionary teaching and his example that we care for the sinner. Now, let's just get this out of the way right now. Everybody say out loud, I'm a sinner. Just say it right now. All right. If somebody next to you didn't say it, look at them and say, you're a sinner. Whatever. All right. We're all sinners. All right. Now, if you've given your life to Jesus and you've had your sins washed away, so there's a case to be made that you're no longer a sinner, but you know what? I know I often fall short of the glory of God. I'm still a sinner, right? All of us are sinners. So this shouldn't be revolutionary to care for sinners because we all are sinners. But for some reason it is. When the teachers of the law who were Pharisees saw Jesus eating with the sinners and tax collectors, also sinners, they asked his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? On hearing this, Jesus said to them, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I've not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Jesus came to reach sinners, those left outside by the rules and regulations of the dominant religion of the day, those that religious people looked down on, sneered at, and raised their noses at. Not us. We care for sinners. We want them to find Jesus. We have the antidote for sin. We have the antidote for guilt, shame, a rugged past, evil decisions, bad choices. We have the antidote to cure it. We have the vaccine to prevent it from happening again. It is a life with Jesus, traveling life with Jesus. Speaking of overthrown dictators, In January of 1990, Manuel Noriega of Panama was taken into custody by American forces for drug trafficking. Sound familiar? While awaiting trial in Miami, Cliff Bannon of Texas sent the former dictator a Bible. And that simple gesture and the letters that followed began a spiritual journey on the part of Noriega that resulted in him giving his life to Christ and being baptized in prison. After his conviction, he spent his last days in a jail in Panama sharing his faith with any and all who would listen. No one is beyond the reach of the forgiveness of Christ. There isn't one of us who don't work with, live near, live with, recreate with, hang out with a sinner. And it's not that they're just a sinner. They feel stuck. They feel ashamed. They made all kinds of excuses. Well, I'm just gone too far for Jesus to help me. God can't love me. Have you seen me? You have no idea all I've done. They make all kinds of excuses. They need us to point them to a Jesus who can forgive anyone of anything. They need us to point them to the truth and a better way to live. If we care for people on this journey of life, we will care for sinners. In fact, what we see here with Jesus is that he calls us to care for people. We care for the person. We care for the person because Jesus cares for the person. Not rules, not regulations, not religious expectations. Jesus cares for people. And this is revolutionary. In fact, this particular passage here in chapter 2 contains one of the unique teachings of Jesus from the Gospel of Mark. Every gospel has its own little unique glimpses. This is one of those teaching is one of the unique ones from Mark. Verse 23 says, one Sabbath Jesus was going through the grain fields, and his disciples walked along. They began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath? You couldn't pick grain, winnow it with your hands and then eat the kernel. That was considered work on the Sabbath and was illegal. He answered, have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar, the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. Then he said to him, and this is a unique teaching in Mark, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Now, there are a few laws that the Jews were more fastidious to follow than Sabbath rules, dating all the way back to the giving of the Ten Commandments. But those laws were not intended to stifle God's people, but to bless them. You'll have no other gods before me. Well, that wasn't just God being jealous and wanting no competition. God knew that having multiple gods would only lead to superstition and spiritual bondage. Don't murder. Yeah, we know don't murder. But God knew that honoring and respecting life made life better for everyone. Honor your parents. Yeah, that's good. But God knew that following your parents' direction will serve you well all your days. Keep the Sabbath. Yes, God knew that rest was critical for everyone. For many of the Jews of Jesus' day, rules became more important than people. And when rules become more important than people, something has gone wrong. Everything is a teachable moment for Jesus. And the lesson that he pulls out here is in direct response to the criticism that the Pharisees were heaping on him. That lesson was simply this: God is a God of people, not of rules. Jesus wants us to learn that lesson today. God is a God of people, not of rules. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath wasn't meant to be a burden to us. It was meant to help us and draw us closer to God. What rules prevent you from truly caring for other people? What rules prevent you from truly caring for the sick, the sinner, the person you pass along the side of the road, the person you work with, the person you live with, the person you see every day? What rules prevent us from doing that? Well, they were mean to me. They don't like me. Well, they voted for you-know-who. They brought their troubles on themselves. Well, they would never help me. I don't have the time. someone else could help them better than me. You know what? I just don't like them. Life's journey is an opportunity to care for people like Jesus cares for people. The sick, the sinner, the saint. The person you like and the person you don't. On this journey of life, we care for people like Jesus cares for people. And in this world, that is revolutionary. I read this week, let me put my stuff back that I stole here. All right. I read this week about Betty Kellenberger. Betty Kellenberger did a remarkable feat this past fall. She completed a through hike of the Appalachian Trail. That means she started down in Georgia and went all the way to the mountaintop in Maine. It's 2,200 miles or something like that. Somebody correct me later. It's over 2,000 miles on the Appalachian Trail. And she completed that. Can you imagine a through hike? It's hard sometimes for me to walk to my office from here. You know what I'm saying? And she did this through hike of that. Oh, and did I mention she was 80 years old? Oldest woman to ever do a through hike of the Appalachian Trail. 80 years old. I can't imagine doing that at 20, much less 60 something or 80. I can't imagine. She said something I thought was pretty profound. She says, "Life is a journey." Oh, okay. Well, I agree. Life is a journey. Then she says, "We've got to keep moving. We've got to keep moving." And I thought, how profound for what we're seeing today. You know, every one of us, even whether we're homebound or whether we run marathons, we keep on moving. We keep on seeing every day as an opportunity to care, to love people like Jesus does. We have every day to move in some form or fashion, to care for people, to see people with Jesus' eyes, to care for them and love them like he does. So who this week will you love with the love of Jesus? What rules have you put in place that are keeping you from doing that you need to discard and be reminded that God is a God of people, not of rules? Who do you need to love this week? If you are not on this journey with us, if you are still considering whether you want to get on this journey, I want to encourage you right now to this very day to join us in this journey. Proclaim Jesus as your Savior. Be baptized into him and walk that journey with us. There's nothing we would love more than you to start that journey today, tomorrow, as soon as you can, so we can walk this journey together as a family. We're going to sing a song of commitment. If you have a decision to make or just want someone to pray with you, I'll be right over here in the front and would love to talk with you and pray with you. But let's stand. Let's sing together.